Hi everyone. So this one I'm going to show half double crochet stitch, but also the color change. Here's half double crochet in this block here. Now I want to switch the color. Same concept as single crochet stitch and all the other stitches. Changing color this method. You will crochet up to the point where you pull through the final step with a new color. So you'll want to get to that step. So I'm just going to undo that stitch there on the corner. So what I mean by that is we'll have double crochet. So you yarn over first, go into that top of that last stitch on the row there. And then I immediately went into a yarn over here. So go ahead and pull that yarn through that. And you have 3 loops here, 1, 2, 3. And then when you yarn over to pull this through to finish the stitch, that's the new color. So we'll let this be on standby there. And let me pull out my handy dandy little kit here. We will get these ready. And the new color. Give yourself about 5-6 inch tail, just so you can weave it in pretty good with no problems or crochet over it. Get that on your crochet hook like so. And those 3 loops, you're going to go ahead and pull that through them. And you can pull the previous color tail down to adjust that stitch a little bit. So that old color here, go ahead and fasten it off here. So give it a good 6-7 inch tail for me. I don't mind a longer tail on it. It makes it easier just to weave it in and get rid of it. And then now that we see that we are, grab the working end of the yarn here, and then here's our little lovely little tails. So that's how we switch the color there on the end. But we need to change or flip it over. The ends curl a little bit, so it's okay if that's happening to you. And we're going to do some micro adjustments here. Pull this part down. And what I like to do is crochet over the tail. So I'll just kind of demonstrate that real quick here. So I have this tail here and then this tail here. I'm going to push them to the back and crochet around the back of the line to like so. In theory, it doesn't matter. You can pull them to the front so you can see them. It's totally up to you. I like to just work it into the back. So go ahead and get started there. Our first loop here is kind of big, so I'm going to tug down on it, get it a little bit more snug. And then we'll go into our half double crochet here. Just keep adjusting it till it's a little bit tighter, what works for you. So you yarn over first, and what I'm going to do is go into that very first stitch, and I'm going to make sure that those tails are there. Grab yarn over and grab and pull that yarn up. 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull it through those 3 loops on your hook. The middle one's going to be a little tricky. It's going to give me trouble. Okay. Looks a little funky with the sorry folks. I just realized my mistake. Didn't do the turning chain. So I'm going to go ahead and chain the 2 here. Whoop, looks pretty ugly there. Again, just adjust it. Everyone makes mistakes sometimes. It's okay. I'm going too fast. So those are turning chain. Same thing. Keep that tail to the top. And as I explained before, these are all your stitches that you're inserting your hook here. And when you insert them, you should see 2 strands of the yarn. 2 strands of the yarn. They make little chevron shapes. 1, 2, 2 strands, and then 2 strands. So those are your stitches you're working into. Just want to point that again to people that need to folks that need a good refresher where to go. So into that first one there, yarn over first. Make sure you chain 2 on your turning chain. Go into that first stitch and make sure you go underneath those tails. So when you grab that working yarn and bring it up, it's locked it in, yarn over, and pull it through those 3 loops on your hook. And we're gonna start repeating now. So yarn over, go into that next stitch, grab that yarn, bring it up, 3 loops on the hook, make sure you're going around your tails, yarn over and just bring that through, all 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, go into that stitch underneath the tails, grab that working yarn, bring it up, yarn over and bring through all 3 loops. And what you're doing now that I have some stitches here, you flip it over, you see that you're crocheting over the tail, so it's automatically going to weave in, and I forgot to show everyone that on the single crochet to hide your tails. So go into that yarn over, into that next stitch underneath your tails, bring that working yarn up, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, center in the video, and pull it through those 3 loops, yarn over into the next stitch. Your tails are there underneath. Yarn over, grab that working yarn, bring it up. So we have 1, 2, 3 on our hook, yarn over, and pull it through all 3. As you're working your tails, you might notice it's a little puffier here, and on the back it's a little bit puffier, just because we're crocheting over those tails, which shouldn't be a big noticeable difference, really. Into that next stitch, yarn over, bring it up, yarn over again, bring it through all 3, over that tail. I prefer to just go ahead and run the entire tail the length. It's totally up to you what you want to do. You could in theory, and some people do, is you can just stop it there and crochet as normal, and then weave this in a zigzag pattern to lock it in if you feel like it's being an annoyance. But I like to just go all the way through with it. So yarn over, bring that yarn up, yarn over, bring it through all 3 loops, just keep going. Okay. I didn't use a stitch marker, but usually when you begin that next row, you can mark the end of your stitch. Some people, when they crochet, like I'll stretch this out, see how it creates the illusion that maybe you don't have anything here and you just start the next row. Do not fool yourself here. There is one more there. It is right there. So you see 1, 2, those 2 strands of yarn. There's one more there. So go through that. Keep the tail, go underneath it, grab that working yarn, bring it up. 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, bring it to those 3. And we've done that. So there's the tail. Now, actually, I should have left even a longer tail so I can weave this in and lock it. This is obviously not workable enough. So for argument's sake here, I will not run it through the whole length because that's just not enough. I'm going to put in my stitch marker here. It'll hold that working yarn in place so I don't lose anything. So I'm going to flip this over and we'll work on the back here because that's where I was tugging these, or not tugging, I just tugged it. But you can see here it's a little bit raised because it's a little bit thicker than normal because the 2 strands are there, the yarn. So what I'm going to do is find a place where I know they are at and pull them out. So this is just an example. You don't have to do exactly what I did. Don't confuse yourself and try to mimic me right now. I needed to leave enough tail to show you folks how to zigzag it in, weave it. So I needed a longer tail than normal there. I keep forgetting. When you're doing these scarves, just leave enough for you to maybe crochet over it a few stitches in, maybe like 6 or something like that. And then you can weave them in. I try to do the entire row normally. That's what I do. But that means I'm leaving a tail of like 10, 12 inches. So I didn't do that this time. So what I like to do is, now that I went this way, I'm going to try to do a zigzag motion. And you do not have to go in between the spaces. I kind of like to dive in different little points in the strands. In between the fibers of this worsted here. So I'm kind of going to go at an angle and down so I can do a zigzag, and that tends to lock the stitch better. I'm going here and just doing a sharp turn and pulling it through. Kind of stretch it back out, let it get back to its form here. Went down at an angle, and I'm going to go back up at an angle in this little zigzag. And what I'm going to do is probably just go through one more time for good measure. I'm going to go right underneath this one. That's where I'm going to cut it. Okay. Give yourself a little stretch. So it's loose. And then I'm going to snip it right down to where that was at. And that's how we kind of lock it and hide it. The untrained eye, you look like it and you're like, oh, I don't even notice anything. Well, over time you'll realize you'll see a zigzag there, because it looks a little distorted, just a tiny bit, to my eye when I look at the stitches. So here I don't have much to actually weave the cyan color tail into. I'm thinking I'm going to crochet another row real quick, and I'll just show you the half double again. There's nothing wrong with going over and over, showing it. So here, turning chain. So 1, 2, yarn over, and we see our first space we're going to work in. Insert your hook, yarn over, grab that working yarn, bring it up. You have 1, 2, 3 loops, yarn over, pull them through all 3, and we're starting already. This next row, it's going to look okay. Now you may notice that depending on your stitches, again, I stitch tightly. My gauge is not floppy, but sometimes I wish it was because I make it look fluffier, but I have to deal with what I do. So you might notice it kind of pushes out a little bit. That's just because the nature of the half double crochet, it's a more fuller, taller, just a slightly taller stitch than the single crochet, and it has a little more body to it. So it kind of wants to push out as you work with it, the stitch. So again, just doing one more row real quick to have some stitches to weave into. Yarn over, go in sprays, yarn over, bring it up, yarn over, and then go through all 3. Lost it. Ooh. Grab y'all. Okay. And I know I'm not counting, but make sure you do count your previous rows. Just keep that extra big loop there so I don't lose it. Okay, let's get this on this tapestry / yarn hook. Okay, so I came from that way. So I'm going to go this way now in my little weaving here. Go through those fibers. Okay. Now when I went that way, I'm going to go the opposite way. Kind of don't want to pull on it too tight. I don't make it look like there's a hole there. I pulled on it a little too tight. Oopsie. Okay. Let's let that be. Going back again at the opposite angle. Zigzag pattern here. And I do one big deep dive right there because I'm going to cut it at that point. Okay, that's getting rid of those annoying pesky tails. I pulled too tight there, kind of made a divot, but I'm not submitting this as a work of art, so I'll let it be instead of toy at it or keep messing around with it. Then it ends up being a scab. It'll just turn into a scar. Oh my gosh, that is noticeable. Okay. So there you have it. Got wove that tail in there. I do have a couple more down here that I will weave in on my own later. So everyone, I hope that kind of was a good just review of the half double crochet. Just one extra step, then single. You yarn over first before you begin inserting your hook to begin the stitch. So it's the main difference. And then the color change, half double crochet, cover that, and then weaving it in. The color change is tails, annoying tails. I just have one set left. So I'll see everyone in class. Have a good one.